What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of PWTB. I am Evan. I'm joined with Jake and Jordan today. Jordan, how you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is Friday night. Jake, how you doing?
Good. How we doing, man? It is Friday night. A lot of us coming off a long work week, I would say, especially down here in Georgia with the snow coming tomorrow. And if you work in retail here in Georgia, and you know how much of a struggle that is, I just came off a 54-hour work week, so we all know that struggle.
Yeah, I think you said 57 last time we were on 54. Yeah, the snow hit here in Oklahoma too, which I don't know if they usually get snow, but anyways, in my training they snowed out last Friday and then this Monday we didn't have to go in for training, which is nice. We were gonna do a show last week, but I had a little too much fun Thursday night, so I wasn't. We'll just leave it at that. I was not completely ready to go. But we are here now, so that is good. And we since we didn't get to last week, we wanted to recap the national championship, of course. So I'll throw it over to Jordan for that.
All right. So on the 19th, we had the Indiana Hoosiers defeating the Miami Hurricanes, 27-21. I'm sorry, Jake. I know it was your birthday, so happy birthday to
Boo!
you.
Boo!
But yeah, we had Indiana beating Miami to complete what was the greatest turnaround in college football history. Um, I mean, obviously this team was, made up a lot of transfers, but that's within the rules nowadays. It As for the game, I have things to say, but I'll throw it over to Jake and Evan to begin with. Jake, you first.
Yeah, no, I mean, Indiana, there's not much I can say about this game. Indiana really deserved it. I mean, they played hard all season long. Obviously blowing out Alabama in the Rose Bowl, blowing out Oregon, in the Peach Bowl, and then, you know, barely, narrowly beating Miami. Miami get put up a good fight because you look at Miami's path to the national championship too. That wasn't an easy path for them. So I feel like they played Indiana a lot closer than a lot of people expected. The final score was going to be, but at the end, Miami just couldn't pull it off.
Evan?
Yeah, so first, Jake, that was very gracious of you, by the way. But my first question is, South Florida advantage, you've got the championship at home in Miami, and it looked like there was more Indiana fans there. What do you got to say to that, Jake? Like, I was shocked by that. I think there were more Indiana maroon there.
Yeah, I just think Indiana bought more tickets to the game. So I feel like the football team bought more tickets, so they had more tickets to sell to Indiana fans. I think that was mostly why.
Yeah, and I don't know where. I mean, I'm not. They're probably more fair weather fans than bandwagon fans. Like, I'm sure Indiana has a decent fan base, but I know as a result of that, like them like flooding both the semifinal and the championship game, that a lot of people kept like putting together pictures of Indiana crowds from like 2023 or 2021, where it's like 30% of the stadium is full, and it's like, where did all these Indiana fans come from? But no, they showed out
Yeah.
there. Thoughts on the game? You know, Miami's front seven, first of all, I just want to give them credit. I thought they ate all game long. I thought they were making tackles. They were hitting hard. Miami's problem, honestly, and I think even Kirk Herbstreit sort of pointed this out, their secondary wasn't tackling that well. So if it did get beyond the front seven, that was a little bit of a struggle. But Miami's front seven was vicious. But like how they always say, like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they put on the cape. I think Fernando Mendoza put on the cape, especially on that run, like just trucking people late in the fourth quarter, but just also all game long. He's facing a good team, Miami. Yes, they didn't put up 50 points this time. And I give both of you props for saying that. I thought I didn't think it was going to be a blowout, but I did say 14 to 20 points, and Miami kept it a close game the entire time, all the way down to the last drive. So you guys were both right on that. It was not a blowout. But yeah, I think Mendoza put on the cape, and it was something truly special to watch. Two good teams, and Indiana was just the slightly better one, so they won it all this year.
So my thoughts on the game. First off, hats off to Miami. What an incredible season. Just going from not thinking you're going to make the playoff to, finishing 10-2, getting that, I guess, final playoff spot.
and then going on the road, winning in College Station, upsetting the Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl, and then beating Ole Miss on a last-second touchdown in the Fiesta Bowl, I believe it was. So hats off to Miami, great season. But for Indiana, I mean, what else can you say? Like I said, I know this team is made up of mostly transfers, but that's the era we're in college football nowadays. Um, Fernando Mendoza is amazing, made the plays when he had to, especially on that touchdown run Evan alluded to. Um, I thought Indiana dominated the first half. I mean, it showed on the scoreboard. I believe it was what 13-0 at halftime. Jake, correct?
Yes, correct.
13-0, and then obviously you had Miami come out get a three and out on defense, and then I believe it was Mark Fletcher had that long touchdown run, and I'm thinking, okay, we
57
got a ball
yards.
game. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, we got a ball game now. It's 13-7, and it really stayed that way. Indiana got a big special teams play, a blocked punt for a touchdown that I thought was, going to give Indiana the win, and ultimately it did. But I mean, as a Georgia fan, it made me kind of laugh that a Carson Beck interception is the reason Miami lost this game. I'm sorry, Jake, but I think that I would have been fine with anyone else being Miami's quarterback and they win a national title.
So quick comment on that for sure, because I know you're addressing Jake on Carson Beck. Carson Beck, we got to do a little bit of critical analysis here. This was his time to shine, and he didn't. I'm being honest. He had like 120 yards going into when they most needed him most. Yeah, they were driving downfield a little bit, and oh my God, I know the Jake was saying the receiver tried taking, a little bit of blame. He's like, I should have turned around. I didn't turn around. I watched the play a couple times. That receiver turned around. You can't do anything when the ball is thrown into double coverage, 10 yards underthrown. It was just not a good decision. It was not a good throw. And I don't want to harp on one play because that's stupid. I'm just saying it was just, not a good play, obviously. But all game long, this was his time to shine and he didn't. I'm not calling him a scrub. I'm not saying any of that. He could be a solid NFL backup or something, but first rounder, I think wiped off the board. I would not touch him with the 10-foot pole if I'm being honest.
Um, So alluding to, Carson Beck in the big moment when Miami needed him the most, I kind of noticed that too in his time at Georgia. He threw four interceptions a game in Tuscaloosa, where we ultimately lost. We were lucky to win the game in Austin, where he threw three interceptions. I believe he threw two in the game at Old Miss in 23 or 24 it was that we lost. So I mean, I'm used to seeing him throw interceptions in big moments, and unfortunately, Jake and the rest of Hurricane Nation, as I think they call it, got to witness that. But so now what I really want to dive into is besides Indiana having that remarkable turnaround, maybe the greatest. Well, it is the greatest in college football history. What do we think was the biggest surprise of the season? Jake, Evan, and then I'll give my pick.
I mean, honestly, I think if you're not going to talk about Indiana, I wanted to give this honor to Miami with the great playoff run that they had, but I think you got to give this honor to Vanderbilt. I think a lot of teams were, a lot of fans, a lot of college football fans were obviously down on Vanderbilt last year. They come out this year, a win at Virginia Tech. They go on the road to Columbia. They blow them out by 24. They go on the road to Alabama. They unfortunately they lose, but then a couple weeks later, they beat a really good LSU team, a really good Missouri team the next week, go to Texas the next week, only lose by three, and then they pull out a gutsy win against Tennessee to end the year. Now, unfortunately, they lost in the bowl game, but I think going 10-3 is really a great accomplishment given what Vanderbilt has done the past couple years.
Yeah, just to highlight, I think that's a great pick by Jake. It's not my pick, but just to highlight it, I think, Vanderbilt, nobody was really expecting them. Maybe they'd be like a 500 something team. But Jake, like Jake just said, they went 10-2. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs and all that, and 10-2 in the regular season. They didn't make the playoffs, but like that's Vanderbilt going against an SEC schedule and doing that well is amazing. And that Iowa Bowl, I don't really hold that against them because the whole like Diego Pavia off the field stuff was going crazy by then. You know, it might have been just bad vibes. So I'm not holding that one too much against them, but that's a great pick. I am gonna pick Miami. I was between Miami and Ole Miss and for potentially biggest surprise. And we were talking about this, a little bit before the show. You know, Texas A&M had a fun season, Texas Tech had a fun season, but BYU had a fun season, but none of those teams ended up doing anything when it mattered most. Miami beat Ohio State. I will admit I did not see that coming any which way. You know, and they just went on this magical run. And I'd give it. Ole Miss went on a magical run too, but I would give it to Miami because they beat them. So, yeah, I think Miami is my biggest surprise of the year because the thing I've always had with them is they can't win the big game. Well, not only did they win the big game, they won like five different big games this year. So I'm gonna go with Miami. Boring pick, but that's all I'll pick.
All right, so both of you make great points. To Jake's point, Vanderbilt had their best regular season in school history, so great pick there. Miami, amazing playoff run, great pick, Evan. But I'm gonna go with Ole Miss. So obviously, 11-1 regular season. Very well could have been 12-0. Led Georgia late in Athens. I honestly think Georgia probably should have lost that game, but we found a way to win. That's besides the point. And then ultimately, Lane Kiffin does what family friendly show. So I'm not gonna use some language I want to use. Um, Leaves them in the middle of the night for LSU. And then all the questions rise. Well, and then all the questions rise. How are they going to do with Pete Golding as head coach without Lane Kiffin? He's now at LSU, obviously. So I mean, people really thought they were going to beat Tulane, and they did. But then came Georgia, and people were like, "Oh, Kirby Smart." So I think that was a great story this year. I mean, there were many of them, but for me, Ole Miss really stood out.